This tutorial will show you how to create APA-style tables in Word. This PowerPoint, you can ask the technician for it if you don't already have it on your Moodle site. But here are some examples of a demographic table in APA style. You can pause to check that out. Here are some of the things you need to add, and here's another example of a descriptive statistics APA style table. Here are some more examples as well. This is an important yes or no checklist that you can use to highlight a few things that have changed from 6th edition to 7th edition. The table number now needs to be bold. The font is going to be the same as the entire text of the paper, which is the same between 6th and 7th edition. However, in 7th edition APA, now students are allowed to use other than Times New Roman for the whole length of their paper. So just read the APA manual to figure out which ones you want to use, but also you can just stick with Times New Roman for the body of your paper as well as the body of the table. Also, you want to center all headings. Previously, we had the first leftmost column aligned to the left, and then the rest of the columns pretty much centered. Well, now all of the columns are centered. So you can look at this as well, but now let's see, here are some other tips if you would like to figure out how to get some data from SPSS in order to actually create the table. But I'm going to mainly go through how to actually click in Word and find some of the features that you need to create the APA table. So let's just look at a demographics table in Word first. This would be a correct format here. Remember that every table or figure that you add to your APA paper would be on a separate page. Of course, we wouldn't have this green heading, or we wouldn't have this heading in your header. Actually, you'd have a different header. But what you can do is in insert here, you can click add in a page break. And what that does is wherever you are on the previous page, it will bump you to a brand new page. And that's what you would do for every table or figure. So here, like I mentioned, now the table number at the top is going to be bold. In the 6th edition, it was not. 7th edition, it is. Then double space, you need an italicized table title. Then you give the body of your table here, and then you have a table note below. And these are some notes to explain it if you'd like to. So I'm going to go down here to show how you would format that table and where you might find some things in Word. Just so that you know, perhaps you're using a remote desktop right now to remote into a PC from campus, perhaps. You can also download Office for free if your school is using Office 365. Ask for instructions on how to do that, but they are free for you to download Word onto your computer. But also if you remote desktop in, then you can use the PC version of Word and follow along with me. The last thing I wanted to say is any Office 365 online applications don't always have the same features. That's why it's good to use a desktop application, either remoting in or on your own PC. Apple, Mac, and PCs look a little different in their Word, so you'll have to look around, but essentially they have the same features. So here we have an unformatted APA style table, so it's not APA style. One thing that will change here, right, we'll just make the table title and table number align to the left. I actually do want to make all of this Times New Roman just because that's the font I'm going to use for my paper. And 12-point font. There we go. This shouldn't be bold. This should be bold, but this should be italicized. The title should be italicized there. Now, I would consider when you create a table, I'll show you how to do that. Keep the borders on the table until the very last second before you're going to finish APA style format. It's very confusing to try to find all the table lines when you've unhighlighted them already. So to insert a table, you go up to insert here, table, and you can drag it out to see what size you might need. Again, I would sort of maybe map it out on a piece of paper to figure out how many columns and rows I want, or I could just simply choose some, and then you can always add more when you know you need more. You can do it like this, or you can click insert table and click number and rows here. So once you have that, I would add some information in. And this is a simple table, so it pretty much has 3 columns showing the characteristic of the demographics, the number, and the percent. And then what we actually have here are 3 sub pieces of information. Sorry, you can't see it there. Age, gender, and racial ethnic group. So I apologize for some missing information or politically correct standards for some of the ethnic groups or genders. This has been previous information, so please disregard that. So here we have a category that's called age, and then we have subcategories underneath age, and the same here. So what you need to do is make the subcategories indented, and what you can do is go up to the top to your ruler. If you do not have a ruler, click view and then check off the box that says ruler, and this will pop up at the top. You're going to use the, if you hover over, it will say the left indent. It's actually the small rectangle that's beneath the hourglass shape in the ruler. And so we just want to indent it just a little bit, and we'll do that for the rest of the subcategories as well. Maybe even a little bit more now that I notice it. So you see how I am highlighting just the subcategories under each. The rest of them can stay to the side. Another thing to note, we don't want anything in the table to be bold, so I'm going to unbold everything here. The only things you would bold in an APA style table might be statistically significant p-values, perhaps. So you can look at examples in the APA manual. So we want to unbold everything here. And we already have our information. And if you look at the alignment, we need to make every column header aligned in the center. We want all of our sort of nominal or informational categories in the leftmost column to be aligned to the left, just like it is here. But then we want a lot of our data should be centered. And now I see these are merged cells, so I'm going to have to change the alignment for those later. But I'll highlight everything and make it center so that my data is now in the center, and I'll go back and change these to left alignment. Okay, great. So you could see where that is. Okay, so some of the other things you need to see are about how to maybe change the length or the width of your columns. And so, for instance, what if we wanted these columns to be both moved over a little bit more, but we want them to be equal in size? You can go up to the top in design and layout. And so I believe it's in layout. Let's go there. Yep. And this button is called distribute rows evenly and distribute columns. And if you hover, you can read what it says, but practically, you know, what it's saying is distribute the columns evenly. So if I click that, then that will make the space between here and here the same as the space between here and here, which is great. This is a good way to show the data so that it spans the width of the whole page as well. So you can highlight the table this way, you can click layout, and you can say auto fit to window, which will make the table span from here to here, all the way the width of the page, which is what you want. Unless it's a really, really small table with only a couple pieces of information, you can make it a small table, but for the most part, you want it to span the whole width of the page. Now, some of the other things we need to know are just about demographics. If there is any missing data, which means that some participants did not answer for age, it's good to keep this in here, which you would see in the frequencies of SPSS if you're analyzing frequencies for these demographics. And so then you're adding at the bottom of each subcategory sort of a total so that you can total the number and total the percentage to be 100. Now, one thing you notice is under here, there is no total category. That's actually because you don't really need a total for each of the subcategories if you're going to add a total at the very bottom, right? So it's not indented because it's actually its own category, which means we don't really need this. This is extra unnecessary information. So I'm just going to delete that row. So now we show missing if necessary. If there's nothing missing, you don't have to, because then you would see that the total was already the total amount of participants. And we made some alignment. Let's go back to the PowerPoint checklist to see if there's anything we forgot. So it's in black and white, table number, table title, column spanners, I'll show you more in a second. Single spaced, we have a table note, we'll check that. And we do need to fix the table lines. I'll show you how to do that. And then let's check if our headings are italicized correctly. We don't have it overcrowded. All of these things look good. So we do need a table note. There's going to be one already, sorry, at the top. I already had one, so I'll just copy that down there. But you can copy and paste them down here. It should be italicized note, period, and then unitalicized, this is where the note should go. For a demographics table, you might not have much of a note, but you could perhaps explain why certain information is missing, or if you have long categories that you need to abbreviate, you can use abbreviations within the table, and then you'd explain the abbreviations in the note below. The other thing I wanted to mention is our headers and italicizing statistical abbreviations. So you could write number and percent up here in Word form like I have, or you could italicize a capital N, and then you could just leave a regular percent sign there, which will, again, make things a little more clear and concise. APA is all about showing your readers something clear, concise, you're not giving too much information, and you are not missing out on information that would be necessary for someone to understand your table or your graph, whatever you're making. So column spanners, I'll show you a little bit more when we look at a descriptive statistics table, but these are pretty easy column headers. They're just 1, 2, and 3. We don't really have multiple populations or multiple studies that you'd need to clarify which information goes to each study. So the last thing we need to do is just to change all of the lines. So these are too many lines. What you need is a line at the very top, a line at the very bottom, and then you want a line right above where you're starting to put your information. And so that would be in between characteristic and age here to sort of represent, these are my headers, and then this is where my information goes. So I would highlight everything. Then you can find the borders right here, or you can go up to home and the border should be over here. Again, if you have your page small, some of your features at the top might not show. In case you need that, it's good to expand your page as much as possible. So highlight, go to home, and go to where the borders are, and let's click the drop down arrow and say no border. And so now it's completely empty of borders. You'll highlight it again if it unhighlighted itself, and let's add a bottom border, add a top border, and then we need that border right in between characteristics, so you can highlight whichever row you want and give it either, the top or the bottom border. I'm sorry, let's go back to home, whichever one makes most sense. So this is, let's see, in APA style here. Of course, we'd remove some of that information. Let's go up to the top and see what it looks like. It looks very similar to the one that's already in APA style. You can see here that I actually made the columns move a little towards the left, so I can show you how to do that. But again, it's very difficult to find that line when you don't have any borders. And so that's why I would recommend doing everything you want with all of the borders first. So for instance, I could move things over here and look, okay. And then I actually do want to make these columns evenly spaced like I showed you. So let's distribute the columns, and there we go, evenly. And then I'm going to go back and change the borders, and then this should be in APA style. So no border, bottom, top. And then I'll do this one this time, and I'll give it a top. Okay, there we go. So I'll save this, and now I'm going to go to a descriptives table. So again, you need to get your information from SPSS first, and it might be a little confusing to figure out how many columns and rows you need, but we'll work on just how to make some of these changes within Word. So again, this is a table. It's about characteristics from a few different measures here. And you see we actually had a younger group and an older group with different measures. So we need column spanners, which means this is a line that sort of spans across two columns. And how do we do that? We use merge cells and different kinds of borders to do so. So I'm going to go down here and we'll work on what it looks like. I'll press enter a few times so we don't have, oh, excuse me. Let's see. Let's see. I'm going to use this one here. So again, you know how to create the bold table number and the italicized table title. We make sure the font's correct. And so as you can see, I have set this up so that I added a column. You can use it by clicking right here, add columns wherever you want. Or you can click insert columns to the left, right, above when you right click on something here. So basically what I did was create 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 columns. And then I merged the two cells that would become younger group. And how you can do that is right click, and there would be a spot that says merge cells. Right now it says split because I actually already merged them. So let's just show you an example. If I want to merge these two cells so that they become one cell, you would right click merge, or you'd go to layout, and then you can click merge cells here and see now they are one cell. But let's go back because I don't need to do that. I just needed to merge these two cells and then merge these two cells. Okay, so if you can still see me here, what I am showing is how to make sure that there are some italicized headings right here. And so every time you put mean or standard deviation, you want them italicized. You want your F statistic, just the F italicized, but the rest of the parentheses and numbers are not. And you want to make sure your P is italicized there. And again, we want all of our headers, the actual headers are going to be center aligned, where the information in our leftmost column will be aligned to the left, and then everything else is also centered here. I added this extra empty column in the middle just so that it looked a little cleaner, but you can decide not to do that. I made it small instead of bigger, and then I made sure to change the width of each of these other columns to exactly what I needed. So I'm going to highlight these again, and I'm going to work on the borders and click no border, and then highlight it, make sure it has a bottom border and a top border. And now I need to figure out where the rest of my lines go. So we always have a full line right above where the data actually starts. So I'm going to click this one and give it a top border. But then we also want those column spanners. And what that means is I would like this little merged cell to have a spanner, and I'd like this one to also have a spanner underneath. And that's why I put that little column in between here, just so that there was a separation between those spanners. But you can determine a few other things. Now let me just see, when I highlight this and go to design or layout. Design, you can look at some shading, but you're not, APA does not want it to be shaded. It should look like the way I'm showing you here. And here, of course, are some other ways you can use the features to figure out how to create the table. I hope this is helpful, and you can always let me know if you have any questions. Thanks.